Hello everybody, MegaZardX here, back at it again to give y'all another very exciting video. And for today, we're just right off the heels of that recent Nintendo Direct that happened to be a partner showcase. Now, yes, that might not have been the Nintendo Direct that everybody was really wanting or necessarily expecting to have. People were thinking we're going to have that big general Nintendo Direct because we never really got one in the month of June, but it seems like Nintendo's holding the cards very close to their chest, at least with all of their first-party games that they still have yet to at least give us actual release dates for a whole bunch of their games, though. But I guess in the meantime, Nintendo's like, hey, they got a whole bunch of third parties knocking on the door, and it's like, hey, we like to announce some of our games or give some release dates of our own. And Nintendo's like, well, we're running on our own schedule, so we might as well go ahead and put this one out here for y'all, though. And overall, I would say the presentation, it was solid for everything third party wise, but it does bring into question a lot of things in terms of what people can expect, at least for the first party things, some other things in terms of like just exclusive games, because for better or for worse, this was really a port heavy presentation though. But let's go ahead and just jump up into all the announcements that they happen to go through and talk about, and then I kind of give my overall thoughts in terms of like just the overall expectation for the Switch 2 moving onward in the future in terms of first party as well as third party. So let's go ahead and get up in this mess. But if you hadn't already done so, make sure you go ahead and hit that like button, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date. All things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and jump straight up into this video. Alrighty, so to kick this presentation off, they first started off with a new game from Capcom. I think the biggest highlights, at least for me, personally, going into this thing, just thinking about what could possibly be in the show, I was wondering what Capcom was going to bring to the table, and I was wondering what Square Enix was going to bring to the table, because I felt like I had a good feeling it was either one or the other that was going to start off or possibly in the show, and my gut feeling is pretty right, at least 9 times out of 10, because we did manage to get a new entry in the Monster Hunter series with Monster Hunter Stories 3. Now, I was looking at this, I was like, dang, what a way to actually start off this presentation, because I certainly was not expecting this. And I like the stuff that I managed to go through, play through, and experience in Monster Hunter Stories 2. And then, you know, the first one happened to come out on the 3DS. Switch 2, or the Switch had the second entry. Now here we are with the Switch 2 with the third game in this series. So, and I do like how it's a little bit more RPG face and stuff like that. Just looking at the characters and stuff, it looks like we went another step beyond Monster Hunter Stories 2, because like the characters and stuff, they look even older than what we had in Monster Hunter Stories 2, because they were still kind of like early teenish years, but this one looks like basically like young adults. We're talking about like early 20s. From the look and vibes of what we're getting from some of these characters. So I do like the fact that it has been growing up with the series and been maturing and stuff though. In terms of a release date for this one, it's not coming out until 2026, but at least that gives me a game to look forward to for next year, at least here's hoping though. So not a bad start, Nintendo, to be able to kind of kick this presentation off. And then you get into a few different announcements. I might have not necessarily had a strong affinity for, but some of y'all out there might actually like some of these games. We had like Once Upon a Katamari. I feel like we get a Katamari game like almost every other presentation that's at least third party, or sometimes it's thrown into a general Nintendo Direct. I don't know how though. Just Dance 2026. Yeah, I mean, it's that time of year. We're going to get it or whatever, though. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero from Bandai. Bandai managed to show up in this show, though. And I really like this. I mean, yes, I bought this game originally on the PS5. So if I hadn't bought that game on the PS5, I for sure would have been buying this one. And I felt like Bandai was personally speaking to me on this release, because it's literally coming out on my birthday, though. And I was like, I really don't want to double dip. But I remember having Dragon Ball Z Budokai Tenkaichi 2 on the Wii. And it just kind of feels at home just to have Dragon Ball games on my Nintendo system, though. So I'm going to try not to, you know, double dip or whatever, though. I already have it on the PS5, but for those out there, surprisingly, this is also coming out on the Nintendo Switch as well. Not sure how they managed to pull off that sorcery or whatever, though. But, I mean, if you have a Switch 2, that'd be the version I would recommend for it, though. So overall, that's a really good announcement right there. You have Plants vs. Zombies. If you like that, you like it. Of course, then you gotta have a little bit of sports games here and there, though. We got EA, you know, with EA Sports. I mean, obviously that's like your FIFA though, soccer, football, whatever you want to call it though. We did manage to get that. Pac-Man World 2 Repack is being announced, and it's coming out on September 26th. So I remember when they did Pac-Man, the first Pac-Man World, and that was on the Switch. So now we got Repack with 2. So that's pretty nice though. Final Fantasy Tactics. Now this is a game I'm really looking forward to, coming out on September 30th. And man, oh man, between like the extra little bits of, you know, just being able to add in some modern conveniences up in the game, cleaner graphics, the fact that everything is fully voice acted, I'm here and I'm ready. I need another strategy game. It doesn't look like Nintendo's going to be able to give me like a new Fire Emblem, where to be the genealogy of a Holy War remake or something like that, or a new Fire Emblem, unless they throw out Path to Radiance Online, which I'll go through and play through that game again though. At least Square Enix is actually picking this up for me though, and dropping out this Final Fantasy Tactics. So I'm really looking forward to that. However, we already knew about that announcement thanks to, I think that first showed up in a State of Play, if I'm remembering right. But anyway, regardless though, I'm really looking forward to playing this, and I'm probably going to pick it up on the Switch too. I was thinking maybe PS5, but we got that confirmed from Nintendo, so I might be getting it there. Persona 3 Reload, heck freaking yes. Once again, a game I already own on the PS5 though, but for all y'all Switch or Switch 2, well, technically Switch 2 fans, because this is only coming out on the Nintendo Switch 2 though. For y'all Nintendo fans out there that really got your foot in the door with Persona 5 Royal, because that's on the Nintendo Switch available right now. Hey, Persona 3 Reload, it's a fantastic remake right there though. Yes, it might not include all the little bits and pieces we got from, like, gosh, they put out Persona 3 on so many different devices over so many years, like the original, Fez, portable. Like, there's so many different things out there though, but I think this game, for what it does, it manages to incorporate at least a good chunk of it though. And gosh, that's a phenomenal experience from start to finish though. I'm really looking forward to Persona 4 Golden when that finally comes out, probably next year, fingers crossed. But anyway though, Persona 3 Reload, you hadn't played it yet, highly advise you, because that game is coming out on October 23rd. Then y'all thought we weren't gonna get anything first party related from Nintendo, right? Well, I mean, if you were to rewind the clock and look back at some previous, partner showcases, Hyrule Warriors actually managed to pop its head up a few times in some partner showcases. So if there was anything first party wise that was going to show up in here, already knew it was going to be this Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment, because they smacked this right in the middle of the show though. And they managed to give us another good look at this game though. Once again, all CGI, and there was a little bit of gameplay here and there though. But the interesting part about this, and we'll circle around to this at the end of the video, is the fact that we still don't have a release date for this game. All they said was, look forward to seeing more updates on this game soon, coming out winter. They didn't say this year, they didn't say 2025, and I have a feeling there might be some things that might be getting internally delayed or something like that, but we'll wrap around to that conversation at the end of the video though. But I mean, it's just nice to at least see another good look at this game running right here on the Nintendo Switch too. Then you go back into a little bit of sports games and stuff, EA Sports. I mean, you're going to have your Maddens and stuff like that, whatever. Got some little bit of an indie-ish vibe kind of going on right here, chilling by the fire. I mean, kind of cool how they're able to use like the Switch 2 camera and stuff up in there, though. I mean, it makes the game maybe a little bit more interesting if you manage to get a group of friends playing with you. Apex Legends, I mean, that just kind of makes sense. They're just trying to get their money, put that out on as many systems as possible. I get it. Hella coming out on Nintendo Switch 2 for 2026. You could play as a freaking rat and like literally Spider-Man and lasso your way up the barn house and stuff like that, get into who knows what. I ain't into like a lot of, kind of games that might be kind of similar in this kind of nature-ish, kind of indie-ish, the vibe that you kind of get though. But I don't know. This one, you might be able to do some dumb, crazy stuff up in this mess. I might be keeping my eye out on that one in 2026. That might be the one game of that nature I might pick up in 2026. Who's to say? Of course, then you have Star Wars Outlaws coming out on the Switch 2. That's coming out on September 4th. So, you know what? I was kind of expecting maybe that one to kind of show its face up though. Chronos: The New Dawn coming out on Switch 2. That's coming out September 5th. Don't have too much to say about that. And then Sega's going to show up once again because they got a little bit more Yakuza. Like, if you hadn't had enough Yakuza in your life, they're going to give it to you. As soon as you're done eating that plate of food and you're just like, oh, man, I just need a brief. No, here comes Sega with the next plate, because we just came off the heels of them saying Yakuza 0 being like one of those, early launch day games for the Switch 2. Here they are with Yakuza Kiwami 2 that's coming out on the Switch 2 on November 13th, a day before my birthday. So I'm like, oh, okay, all right. And then also on that day, a Switch 2 version of the first Yakuza Kiwami is also coming out for the Switch 2 as well, though. So, hey, they're about to fill up your plate. They're going to slowly but surely put out every single one of these Yakuza games where you can play the whole entire series on the Switch 2, kind of like how you already can do the thing with the PS5. I already bought that collection. It has all of them on the PS5, though. But I might pick up the Yakuza 0 one on the Switch because it got English voice acting and whatever, though. So it's just really nice to be able to see Sega support Sega support the Switch 2 strongly like this for a game that series that you wouldn't necessarily would think would manage to see the light of day, at least on a Nintendo console. So that's really cool. Then they went into the whole entire sizzle reel where they usually just kind of hit us with rapid fire. There's some stuff to kind of keep in mind of some games that might be coming out here in the near future, though. Then we get to the very ending of the show, and this is where you had that closeout. Typically, it's that time where they give us that one more game, that one more aha, that wow factor. Just give it to me. Something that we just ain't expecting now. And lo and behold, Square Enix showed up, and they showed up big, and they showed up proud. Because I was in my Discord call with my buddies and stuff, and I was just saying, hey, y'all, if there's one thing I want to see out of this partner showcase, because I knew it was chock full of third-party games, I knew Hyrule Warriors was going to show up. But the one third-party game I wanted to see was a game from Square Enix. And I want to see the next HD 2D game. Kind of like how Octopath Traveler was the first HD 2D game that actually kicked off that whole entire HD 2D series, though. But they were there with the Switch kind of on day one in terms of this revealing the game like that. And I was like, hey, just give me something HD 2D. Give me something, Square Enix. There's something to chew off of right now because I don't know what I need to play next. And lo and behold, they did that and then some, because The Adventures of Elliot was announced for Square Enix, and it's going to be a 2026 game. It's the next new game in the HD 2D series. They've been beefing that engine up from like Octopath Traveler to Octopath Traveler 2. Then we had Live Alive, and then we had Triangle Strategy, and then we have, Dragon Quest 1 plus 2 as well as 3. So this just happens to be the next one in the series, though. And it's going to be an action RPG. I was almost looking at it thinking, you know what, it's probably going to be a turn-based. I wasn't necessarily thinking of another strategy game like Triangle Strategy or anything like that. But the fact that they went action on it, so we're kind of almost hitting on those roots of like a Secret of Mana-ish almost, but the HD 2D style, oh man. I'm all here for it, though. I mean, yes, some people might be already cracking some, jokes and stuff about the fairy creature or whatever with the voice actor. I digress, though. Look, I'm all here for it, though. And on top of all of this, they did manage to give us a brand new demo for the game that you're able to play right now on the Switch 2. So I'm like, heck yeah. So as soon as I'm done like recording this video or something like that, that's immediately what I'm about to start messing around with next. I mean, yes, they're taking feedback right now, so you can't, everything you see in that demo is not going to be exactly what we're seeing in the game, though, but it gives you an idea what to expect. So, yes, I'm ecstatic through the moon, because that's going to be a highly anticipated game in 2026 for me to play, along with, like, Monster Hunter Stories 3. But they weren't done yet in terms of that one last thing, because they had one last thing. And, yes, we're talking about Octopath Traveler 0 was announced, and it's coming out on December 4th. This one kind of caught me by surprise, because I was almost thinking, were they going to announce an Octopath Traveler 3? Because I knew The Adventures of Elliot. I knew that wasn't Octopath. For some reason, my gut wasn't telling me that. With this announcement, I was like, yes, this has to be Octopath Traveler, though. But then I started looking at it. I'm like, wait a minute, Octopath Traveler 0? And I started noticing some familiar faces from the first game. I'm like, it makes sense now. It's a total cash grab. Yes, this is technically the mobile game that they managed to put out on mobile that actually incorporated some stuff from like the first Octopath Traveler game. I don't know if they did several updates where they also included stuff from the second game, though, but it's kind of like a prequel to the first Octopath Traveler game, though. So yeah, I'm kind of curious how they will handle and with all the monetization related stuff that was in that mobile version, and did they just manage to streamline this to where it just feels like a natural console game, stripped of all those monetization things, though. So this one is a game I might be sitting on the fence just a little bit. Like, I'm hoping that the game turns out good and it's, a little bit better than what the mobile games. It has all the content there. It's not like you have to buy nickel and penny this or whatever, though. And it's not just only for the Switch 2. It's also going to be available on the baseline Switch 1 as well, though. So yeah, that was the final game that managed to wrap up this whole entire presentation for the Nintendo Direct for this partner showcase. So overall, where would I exactly put this presentation? I think if I were to give it an honest letter grade, it's probably a middle of the road presentation. I will probably give it a C plus. C plus. I'm being a little bit generous. I was thinking about C, but now I'm leaning on a C plus. Mostly because I had to take a step back and just think about this from the mind point perspective of, if you're just a Nintendo fan, somebody that's only in the Nintendo ecosystem, somebody that has a Nintendo Switch or a Switch 2, the announcements here are really good. Granted, if you're someone like me that happens to have like a PC or a PS5 or somebody out there that might have also an Xbox console or whatever, though, for whatever reason, though, yes, you might have gone through and played a lot of these games already. So a bunch of these ports coming over to the system, like for me, Persona 3 Reload, I already played that. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, I already played that as well. You're going to have a few games out there like that, the Yakuza games, that you might have already played, and they're not going to necessarily do anything for your appetite. And that's totally understandable. And I just kind of wish that there was at least a little bit more stuff in the show that might have been, fresh, new stuff. Kind of like your games that Square Enix announced towards the very end of the show, or with Monster Hunter Stories 3 being at the very beginning of the show. Announcements more like that. But, I mean, it's still kind of early on in the console's life, and that's just kind of where we're at right now. So that also brings into question a bigger question. Where in the world are all of these first-party games that Nintendo is actually holding on to? Because at least in the back of my mind, when I was just kind of going through and thinking about when the next general Nintendo Direct would be, I was like, we could honestly wait from April. April was the last one we had with the Switch 2. Mind you, a week before that, we also had another Nintendo Direct that was only on Switch 1 stuff, right before that Switch 2 presentation. Remember that? But anyway, from that April presentation, when they set us up good for the Switch 2 with Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza, from that point moving forward, I had a feeling we might not necessarily get a Direct in June, considering that's when they actually released the Switch 2. I felt like they could wait all the way until September before they actually give us release dates for a lot of those games that were announced and we hadn't got release dates for yet. If whatever game happens to be in September happens to get a release date, whether it's a Twitter drop, something that drops on the Nintendo Today app, or shoot, they had a chance in this one show to actually give Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment a release date. If they wanted to put that in September and fulfill that September slot, that's good. Then we can wait all the way until September, because typically I think Nintendo, give them 2 months and they'll go ahead and market and release that game. That's what happened with Mario Kart World. They showed it off in that April presentation. 2 months later, in the month of June, boom, there it is. There's the game, and it's out in our hands. So I was thinking, hey, whatever game comes out in September, and for the longest time, I was thinking that would be Metroid Prime 4. As long as we got a release date some point in the month of July, I think that's still a chance. And the fact that now July has come and gone with no release date whatsoever for Metroid Prime 4, I'm thinking at this point, we already had a lot of footage showcased off for that game. Mind you, if you think back to all of the treehouse footage that we got, I'm thinking that game is kind of closer to finish. They're just trying to figure out exactly where to slot it, and they're just trying to, put a little bit of extra, polish up on there. Yes, we saw some Korean ratings and stuff like that for some of those games. So it makes me think it's right around the corner, but maybe they don't want to slot it in September. Maybe they want to go all out and do it in the month of November. But if they release Metroid Prime 4 in the month of November, then that Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment that I was thinking in November might slip into 2026, because they've been saying winter as what we saw in this presentation. So at least where I'm feeling right now, I'm thinking August is Drag X Drive. That's what we got from Nintendo. September, I don't think anything's coming out in that month. I'm sorry. Unless they shadow drop something in that Direct, which that could be a thing. It won't be nothing that we already know about coming out in that month of September. We'll be lucky to get a shadow drop or something. October, that's when you're going to have your Pokemon Legends ZA. November, I think that's going to be Metroid Prime 4. And you will be extremely lucky if you got anything Kirby related in the month of December. And if it were, it will be that first week of December. If it doesn't happen in that month, then I could also see Kirby rolling into 2026 instead of it being 2025. Because we had not seen a lick of actual gameplay outside of, just CGI trailers and stuff like that when that was first showcased in that Switch 2 Direct. So yeah, I think that's where we're kind of leaning in terms of all the first party announcements. I mean, it's just kind of, some things are just kind of, going on in the back of the kitchen. We don't know if something burning. We don't know if something smoking. All we can just tell is just, there's no food in front of our plates right now. I mean, it's just kind of like, once they're done with Donkey Kong Bonanza, I'm in the midst of 100% in that game. I'll get really close to the end of it. I'm just going to have to be, content that I'm done with my Switch 2 games for the time being, first party wise. I'm just going to start looking at some other third-party games to kind of keep me, invested and going or whatever, or start dabbling into my backlog and stuff, because Nintendo, they're just, for whatever reason, they're just not ready to showcase off their next first-party games, though. But y'all got to let me know down in the comment section down below, what all did you think about this partner showcase? Was there a lot of cool announcements up in here that you're really looking forward and excited to see, such as myself, Monster Hunter Stories 3, hey, that new Elliot game from Square Enix. I love myself some HD2D games. Bought every single one of those games. They're all amazing, though. Man, I'm excited through the moon, but I'd like to see what you're excited about as well down in the comment section down below. But that's going to basically do it in terms of today's video, though. So if you really like this, make sure you're going to hit that like button. Go ahead and hit the subscribe button and that bell to stay up to date on all things video game related I feel like talking about and discussing. So remember, y'all, until our video I make next, see y'all.